Right, we're back with yet another riveting debate here on Media Monitor, analysing some of the biggest news of this week. Good morning, everybody. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel. Here's what we have in store for you this morning. We start by looking at the recent controversies that have engulfed the power utility Eskom, and also delve into NC MP Dr. Makosi Khoza's social media outbursts and security threats. Has she really crossed the line for speaking out against the ANC? And lastly, we dig deeper into the mechanisms and the recovery plans that have been put in place by the SABC's interim board. The state broadcaster was facing multiplicity of crises, including cash liquidity problems. But first, as always, let's take a look at the news that are trending at 900 hours. Veteran government communications practitioner Ronnie Mamwepa has died in a Pretoria hospital at the age of 56. His family says he'd been battling with complications after suffering a stroke. Mamwepa's voice was well known on radio and TV news reports from his long years as an official spokesperson. He served the ANC in his capacity from 1994 and later in the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Home Affairs. Mamwepa's last position was as the spokesperson for Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the presidency and Ramaphosa are among those who have extended their condolences to the Mamwepa family. NC presidential hopeful Lindiwe Sisulu has broken with party tradition and launched a manifesto for her campaign to replace President Jacob Zuma. Themed It's a Must, Sisulu launched the campaign yesterday at the historic Walter Sisulu Square in Kliptown, where the Freedom Charter was adopted 62 years ago. Now her campaign invokes the spirits of ANC stalwarts Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and of course her father, Walter Sisulu. And Bafana have progressed to the next round of the 2017 African Nations Championship qualifiers after they defeated Botswana 1-0 in the second leg at Moruleng Stadium in Rustenburg. Kaizer Chiefs striker Mr. Bryce Moon scored the single. The aggregate score there 3-0 in favor, of course, of Bafana after the two legs. Right. Well, we do have on the main set today to analyze those stories media analyst Mr. Dominic Mahlangu and Mr. Tebogo Ditsejo. Gentlemen, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alicia.
All right. And of course, our digital producer, we have Mr. Oguhle Maqaba. Oguhle, the first time around, how are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, thank you,
Good,
Alicia.
good.
And yourself?
I have a feeling you are here to tell us the biggest hashtag of this week. Take it away. What was the biggest hashtag of this week?
So this week we celebrated Nelson Mandela Day, and this is what actually people on Twitter had to say. Wade van Niekerk said, missing home on this Mandela Day as I prepare to represent our country. So proud to be South African. One nation, one love. Hashtag live Madiba's legacy.
Absolutely. I mean, Wade van Niekerk, it just seems like he's just been dedicating 67 hours and minutes and everything to everything, you know. Nhlanhla there says hashtag Mandela Day. Young leaders should treat every day as a Mandela Day and driving change within their society. Hashtag committed to change. Hashtag my voice, my safety. Let's look at more tweets.
And then former
public protector
Thuli Madonsela said, on International Mandela's Day, let's not remember only his kindness, but also his unwavering commitment to the rule of law, peace and unity.
Gentlemen, what did you make of the outcomes on Twitter in terms of how people celebrated Mandela Day? Let's start with you, Tebogo.
Well, it was trending worldwide, and that speaks to the legacy of Utatu Nelson Mandela. He didn't just practice what he preached, but he practiced before he preached. So I think that his brand stood the test of time. His values that he espoused, you know, are now filtering down, you know, years after his death.
Absolutely.
And so I think the legacy lives on, and it is a heartwarming story. I think we should make every day a Mandela Day, as opposed to simply spending 67 minutes, you know, on various projects.
What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, for me, I mean, other than the world joining us as South Africans, but more and more people now are beginning to work instead of taking selfies and all of that. I saw a lot of people working this time because of, in the previous years.
It's about contributing and doing a bit of good, not just taking selfies at a place where people are doing good.
So this time I saw a lot of people actually wearing overalls and working.
Absolutely. Wow, there is a good change. Ugushe, let's look at the next big hashtag of this week. What was the story?
Well, another one was the My Way email that leaked onto social media, with some people saying it would be very easy for My Way to prove the email wrong, even if it's fake. Show the statistics of claims settled against race. It surely can't be that hard.
Let's look at more tweets then. Zuzo Mazibugo says, My Way means their way of discriminating against black people. They must be completely boycotted. They run a discriminating business. Hashtag My Way. Let's look at the last tweet.
And then Manzini says, I didn't believe this email, as My Way has been the best insurance for me. Hashtag My Way.
Dominic, different views there. People are saying, well, it looks like fake news, and others are saying, well, let's boycott them. What do you think?
Alicia, now we live in what I call the digital world. So it's a question of anything goes. There will be those who will condemn My Way, there will be those who support them. But I can tell you that for businesses, it's actually even more important for them to spend more money, managing their image on the digital world. Because of anything, whether good or bad, the public will simply go for you.
Absolutely.
So I'm not surprised by these comments coming from the general public.
What do you think? I mean, did My Way finally come out to verify if this email was indeed theirs or not?
Yes, they did come out and say that email is not genuine. However, the damage has been done. They took they got hammered for 72 hours. And so I think that generally what this speaks to is, the amount of violence that Africans have faced, and they're not going to tolerate this any longer. And I think My Way needs to come out and explain to us, how is their board constructed? Is it transformed? Is there truth to the allegations that are made that black clients are being taken advantage of because maybe they don't have the legal means, in order to take action if they are unfairly dismissed?
So whether right or wrong, it did raise the relevant questions and important questions that we as society should be asking. Let's wrap up this segment by looking at the last big hashtag of
and the long-running hashtag has been RIP Ray Peel.
And we saw his funeral take place. We were covering that the whole day yesterday. Let's look at some of the tweets. What were people saying, Oguhle?
And Wokobo says, RIP Ray Peel, I hope you do meet my dad because you were his favorite. Lalangotolo legend.
Oh man, let's look at more tweets there. David Mpofu says the loss of Ray Peel so soon after Johnny Mekwa marks an incalculable loss for this nation and the art. Hashtag Ray Piri, RIP Ray Piri, hashtag RIP Johnny Mekwa. Let's look at more tweets there.
And then we have Bongos says, thanks for sharing your talent and yourself with us. Hashtag supremely talented. Hashtag RIP Ray Piri.
Dominic, your fondest memories of him?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around Ray Piri. I mean, as a child, I had an opportunity to see him practicing. He was staying in Israel, in Katlong. So for me, when he died, all those memories, because of even my friends, we started, reliving those stories about Ray Piri. But he's a legend. I think his music will be with us for a long time.
Absolutely.
I think he had a dignified send-off, and we need to compliment the Department of Arts and Culture for the work that they've done, in ensuring that our living legends are recognized while they're living and that they get, dignified send-offs. I think we're poorer as a nation. With his loss, however, we are richer for the legacy that he left behind.
Absolutely, and that's the narrative that we saw in today's tweets. Oguhle, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Do tell our viewers where they can get all these stories and more that are trending on our digital front.
Well, if anyone and everyone needs more news, go to sabc.co.za/news.
All right, that's where you're going to find it all there. Let's take a quick ad break, and after that, we take a look, of course, at the financial standing of power utility Eskom. What is happening now? Find out after the break. My analysts are here to unpack the woes at Eskom.
Do you have a funeral policy?
Making someone's dreams come true is not always as simple as saying yes. But AVBOB's cashback funeral plan not only provides funeral insurance for your family, but also helps you to say yes to life's little extras. Because for every 5 claim-free years, you'll get an entire year's premiums based on your monthly premium value, paid back in cash. SMS Duduza to 41790 and we'll call you. AVBOB, we're here for you.
If you want AVBOB to contact you, SMS Duduza and your name to 41790.
And we're back with our main stories now. Power utility Eskom continued to hog the headlines this week. The parastatal is embroiled in a number of controversies, including corruption allegations, management inefficiency, and over its dealings with the Gupta family. In reference to current problems which have overwhelmed the utility, Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown has asked the new interim board to conduct short-term investigations, where she revealed her skepticism of Eskom's truthfulness. Now, Eskom has admitted for the very first time that it paid almost R500 million to Gupta-linked consultancy firm Trillion, while McKinsey raked in 900 million rand for consultancy work. The power utility has refuted reports that it has cash only to last for the next 3 months. Meanwhile, the company's chief financial officer, Anoj Singh, has promised to submit a tell-all report about 2 trips that he allegedly undertook to Dubai that were allegedly paid for by the Gupta family. Let's find out more in this insert.
Instituted various measures, including changing the board and establishing a deep dive investigation to be conducted by South Africa's Special Investigation Unit into all the allegations of impropriety that have surfaced at Eskom over the past 10 years. I've also asked the new interim board of Eskom to conduct certain short-term investigations of their own and report to me with recommendations.
All right, so we hear that so many untruths have been told. So what is the true story?
Well, I think firstly, the issue of the interim board coming on board to ensure that they investigate allegations of impropriety, even conflicts of interest, it's very welcoming. I think from our perspective, we do want to see accountability, and that is what is happening.
Yeah.
I also think that we're missing the positive elements of this story. You know, Eskom reported profits of close to 1 billion rands. Eskom as a group, and that was 808 million rands. But Eskom as a power utility did make a loss of approximately 450 million rand. And that could have been caused by the amount of bonuses that they have distributed, which was in the average of 88,000 rands each, of which I think that is something that shouldn't be repeated in future, even if there was a case, you know, for you to give someone a very high bonus, you need to also be very careful, because some of the costs, should it affect the financial standing of Eskom, is going to now be passed on to the consumer.
Yeah.
And so as consumers, we are worried, because that then affects the poorest of the poor, of which some cannot even afford the current rates of electricity. So we must be very responsible in how we manage our finances, and also look towards also complementing Eskom where they do the right job.
But Dominique, I mean, speaking of bonuses there, how do you preempt that somebody's going to stay with you until a certain year? Because we see here that apparently they were supposed to be set up until the year 2018.
The problem with Eskom is that for years there's never been a proper, what I would call proper political management.
Yeah.
If there was proper political management, I can tell you that the board and even the executive, they were going to get a clear mandate. But now with Eskom and other entities, if I may say so, Alicia, is that even other entities that we are not even talking about today, find themselves in this situation where political management is so weak that the executive decide now to do things on their own terms. So I'm not surprised by this situation within Eskom, where people simply will write their own checks, people will write their own deals, and people will...
Dominique.
No, but the board, I can tell you that if the board is not properly managed at a political level, they will do as they please. So I'm not surprised by all these figures that are being mentioned today, that on the one hand, they are stabilizing, on the other hand, they are losing. At the end of the day, each and every person in this country needs electricity.
Yeah.
So whether we are rich or poor, it's going to affect all of us. So that is why I say that the minister needs to tighten her hand and make sure that there's proper management of Eskom.
All these shenanigans at Eskom, yet no one has been arrested or charged or criminally charged. Why is that, Debo?
Well, I think they're waiting for the internal disciplinary hearing to reach its conclusion, because obviously you've seen that some have resigned. Even the chairman of the board of Eskom has resigned.
They've all resigned?
Yeah, they've all resigned. And I think they're looking to see how the internal query is going to pan out, before they then jump, to criminal charges. I think we should also be wary, and as much as we should flag instances where we see that, wrong things are being done. However, we should also allow the processes of disciplinary processes, criminal processes, to run their course before we say that so-and-so is guilty of this. Because, fundamentally we are all innocent until we are proven guilty. However,
how many times must this be done though, Debo?
Well, I think, however, we should hold them accountable, and I think that is what we are doing currently. It's very important, for us to discuss that, in detail, so that we ensure that the poorest of the poor are protected. I mean, electricity is a primary need for any South African. You need a house, you need shelter, you need food. Electricity is essential. And for us, we are happy. I mean, we should be happy that electricity is now accessible to more South Africans. However, in its accessibility, is it financially accessible? And then when you're mismanaging funds at Eskom, it becomes less accessible. And so for me, it is very important for us to, tighten our belts, to be disciplined, and to follow the correct procedures.
No, I think we should arrest the perpetrators, don't you think, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, it's long overdue. I mean, this thing also sends a bad message to the public.
Absolutely.
I mean, I fully agree with you to say that we should not simply label people as being corrupt. We should follow processes. But at the end of those processes, if action is not taken, the public will simply say, what's the point of having all these investigations? Because at the end of the day, nothing one is criminally charged. And also, people in this country have got a way of, especially those who hold senior management positions, once they are scrutinized, the first thing that they do is to resign. And then what happens afterwards? The
investigation, exactly.
And then nothing happens. So the public, the perception going through to the public is that there's more talk from the ministers and others to say that we're acting against corruption, we're rooting out corruption, but who's being charged?
But guys, I mean, let's talk about this. I want to hear your thoughts on reports that barely days into her appointment as the new acting SASSA CEO, Pearl Benga, has now been found to be a business associate of the daughter of Bathabile. I mean, how do these things go by unchecked? Debo?
Yeah, you see, in any process in which either there's an appointment or there's an awarding of a contract, you always check the background of the person.
But we say we're following processes, Debo.
Absolutely.
So these processes are not working.
All the businesses that are involved, absolutely, you must check that. And if you find yourself, knowing somebody or having a family member who wants to do business, you're going to fall under the conflict of interest unless you declare this. So we also need to find out if this was declared, and then we should look back and say if it was not declared, even if it is declared, is it still a conflict of interest? I think that it is quite unfortunate what has happened. And I'm not sure what is happening with regards to the SASSA matter, but I am quite confident that there will be accountability with the Eskom matter. If you look at the way this matter has been communicated, particularly the Eskom one, you can see that, I mean, the person who was implicated has already been suspended. So it's not like they're just folding their arms. People have resigned. The minister has made a statement in public. And so I strongly believe that the people who are implicated here, there's going to be a very strong example set, with them.
Dominique, I mean, with all these controversies, I mean, some members of the ANC have called on President Jacob Zuma to stand down and just allow for the judicial inquiry to go ahead.
My view is that removing President Jacob Zuma is not going to solve most of the problems because of he's just but one individual.
Yeah.
So the entire system, we should look at the entire system, especially when it comes to government business, because of that's where people are concentrating on. Because of to be in government for the sake of being in government these days, you are just an ordinary worker. But there are people who join government for a specific reason, to make sure that they loot the resources. So whether you remove President Jacob Zuma at the end of the day, it might solve other things, but the general picture is that the entire system needs to be looked at. The entire system we need serious intervention into it. Coming back to the issue of SASSA and the conflict of interest, I mean, the minister to appoint the director from KZN, it simply raises other questions. Because of the stories now is that that business connection is with the daughter. The company was formed when she was 18 or 19, somewhere there.
Yeah.
So you begin to ask yourself that, why would such a director start a company with the daughter of a person who, at that time, I mean, Batabile Dlamini was holding senior position within the ANC. So, there is this thing in politics, they call it javelin politics.
Yeah.
Was the minister throwing a javelin, hoping that at the end of the day she will benefit? So all those questions need to be clarified. As I say again, to agreeing with you, is that it's unfortunate that all these appointments, there are big question marks that follow them.
I mean, we also know that the suspended acting CEO, Koko Majele, is to face disciplinary action over awarding contracts to a company that was linked to his daughter. But you spoke about serious interventions that need to happen. Dominique, what do you think Eskom needs to do at this stage to get out of this stalemate?
We need, serious investigations that will result in prosecutions, so as to send a message. Because for now, we're simply talking. I mean, I'm encouraged by the noise coming out. It's still a noise. Up until there are people who are standing in front of a judge, answering questions, that's when I and the public are going to say something is happening.
What do you think needs to be done quickly, Debo?
No, you need to strengthen your accountability mechanisms.
Yeah.
And that's where
on whose part now? On government's part or on the parastatal's part? Who's got that responsibility to tighten the accountability?
Well, it's firstly the accounting officer.
Yeah.
Within, whether it's the parastatal or the government institution. And then you go to the political head, and then you go to cabinet, which is going to hold everybody accountable. Yeah. And so for me, I think that if you can tighten the governance of each institution, then you're going to be able to ensure that accountability is heightened, and that the people will pay the price should they not follow the correct procedures. And I think, from my perspective, what we are seeing is promising. That we are going in that route. However, we do need to understand that should we not follow procedures, a lot of the people who deserve, for example, that particular position or that contract are going to suffer. And at the end of the day, that is going to affect the poorest of the poor, because you are the one who is not insulated within that particular system. The majority is not insulated in that system.
But everybody's deflating, saying we're taking orders from our superiors, therefore our hands are tied, we couldn't do anything. So it leaves you back to that point of, what truths are we going to get out of Eskom, and when is it going to come out in time? Dominique?
In fact, it's even shocking when the minister is saying that she doesn't believe anything coming out of Eskom.
Yeah.
I mean, if the minister who's charged to make sure that she manages Eskom at a political level, if she says, I don't believe anything coming out of Eskom, the public, how are we supposed to move forward?
The minister found out about the so-called bonus through a newspaper. Through the media. Very interesting indeed. All right, after the break, we ask, has ANC MP Dr. Makosi Khoza crossed the line for speaking out against President Jacob Zuma? Find out. Media Monitor returns.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
You're still with Media Monitor. ANC MP Dr. Makosi Khoza has thrown down the gauntlet at President Jacob Zuma, publicly calling on him to resign, leading to the party in KwaZulu-Natal calling for disciplinary steps to be taken against her. In a Facebook post earlier this week, Khoza said she refused to die silently. She had received death threats following her criticism of Zuma and given just 21 days to live. Parliament and the SAPS have since attended to Khoza's security concerns, promising to provide her with police protection. However, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula has since accused Khoza of ducking the police and of instead discussing her problems on social media. NC Chief Whip Jackson Mthembu has previously accused her of extreme ill discipline after she publicly criticized what she called the politics of patronage. Let's take a look at this clip.
Now, Comrade Makosi goes to a platform of our enemy. Save South Africa has made it clear that they are not only concerned about a displacement of President Jacob Zuma, but they are determined equally to remove the African National Congress. Our view now is that this elevation of freedom of speech and elevation of the Constitution of the Republic, more and above a responsibility to be a cater of the ANC, is mischievous. And we believe that the only way we can circumvent that conduct. Comrade Jackson Mthembu issued a very clear statement a few weeks ago denouncing the conduct of Comrade Makosi Khoza. And all of us were very excited that emerging from the policy conference, the leadership has become more firm and more decisive to curb wrongdoing. But Comrade Makosi is continuing, and our view is that she's not a free agent.
Think, Dominic?
Yeah, this matter, it actually shines a spotlight in how the ANC operates.
Yeah.
I've always argued, Alicia, that the ANC of Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, the ANC in exile, operated in a different space.
Yeah.
But now what the ANC needs to understand that the world is changing, South Africa is changing, and South Africans demand another level of management. Mm-hmm. So if the ANC is got to move with the times, it needs to also look into its own systems, how it adapts its own systems.
True.
If Dr. Makosi Khoza is going to go out and say, look, I believe that the president should resign, and I believe that the president needs to be accountable, is she the only voice within the ANC? Mm. And I doubt, because of even yesterday, Minister Sisulu launching her campaign, she alluded to such statement to say all those implicated needs to face, disciplinary hearing. So why is she being targeted alone? I'm not saying that the ANC is wrong to institute its own policies to discipline members, but it should also do so in view of where South Africa is and what South Africans need. Because of Dr. Makosi Khoza is actually gaining, I will say, a public trust with her views. They might be wrong, they might be right, but that's why the ANC needs to look at that. The ANC is no longer in isolation. It doesn't operate in isolation.
Yeah.
It's a governing party. Whatever that it does, it's got a very serious impact on how the public views the ANC and the ANC in government.
I like that you mentioned that, because we're just talking about, we always hear political parties saying that, members need to stick to the party processes. I mean, what then should people make of her going alone and having, saying these statements against her own party? Doesn't it sound like she's got her own personal agenda then, Debo?
Well, you need to look at it this way. Dr. Makhosi Khoza has constitutional responsibilities as a member of parliament.
True.
But then that sometimes would conflict with the organizational discipline within the ANC.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It has never been a culture of the ANC for members or even leaders within the party to go out and criticize the party. That has never happened, whether you're talking the ANC of O.R. Tambo, of Nelson Mandela. The ANC believes in organizational discipline, and if you have issues, you address them within the party. Now, if you believe that the issues are so insurmountable that you would like to go public with them, then there will be certain consequences. Those consequences cannot be death threats or threats to your daughter. You know, the consequences thereof could be either that we are going to look within and say, how do we address these issues? Or we're going to do that and we're going to discipline Dr. Makhosi Khoza. Now, from what I see, when we deal with politics in South Africa, we tend to have double standards.
That's true.
You'll never find, I haven't seen, you know, in recent times, in opposition politics, where somebody within the opposition party goes out and tells the president to resign, and then there are no consequences. You will remember that when there was a tweet about Helen Zille, and someone within the party in the Democratic Alliance liked that tweet. That person almost faced disciplinary consequences just for liking a post on social media. Now you have gone on a public platform and you are saying the president must now resign. And then you think that there won't be any consequences. Now, my question is that why is it that the opposing faction within the ANC is not going to the branches in order to realize whatever they want to realize? Because conference is only 5 months away. Why is it that they're going in public? Because when you go in December and you look at the results, you're going to look back and say, look at how the opposing faction was behaving before the conference. They didn't roll their sleeves up and get their hands dirty. Go to the ground and mobilize support, or maybe use the internal disciplinary processes in order to ensure that whatever they want to achieve is achieved at the end of the day. But they keep repeating the same actions and hoping for different results.
Dominique?
Yeah, I mean, going forward, I think the ANC will have to go back to the drawing board and look how it operates in terms of how it disciplines its own members. I mean, with the issue of Dr. Makhosi Khoza, you know that she has taken a serious stand, you know, that has actually alarmed members. But she's not alone. That's what I'll keep on raising. She's not alone in raising those matters. We've got the veterans who have even issued statements and even held, you know, conferences, you know, stating the very same fact. I'm not saying that people within the ANC should go out, you know, and say all these things, but it points back to the whole structure of how the ANC is being managed today and how the ANC responds to what South Africa stands at. This is 2017. It's no longer 1940 or 1950. This is 2017, and the ANC needs to understand that the world has changed. South Africa is moving forward. So it needs to look at how it operates as an organization, and an organization that is actually a governing party.
But gentlemen, let's look at how the ruling party actually dealt with this issue. I mean, Tebogo, I understand you talking about the death threats. We're hearing a different side, of course, from the police minister saying that they tried to give her that assurance or that safety or try to engage with her. Instead, she decided to go on social media. So what then, Tebogo?
Well, we're dealing in our country with issues of violence against women. And when you look at...
And not just that, there were killings of prominent politicians, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, ANC councillors.
I would actually I'd actually take a step back if we're going to take that route. Because if you look at this goes back to freedom of speech, right? Now, if you look at how South Africa was during white minority rule, there was no freedom of speech. And I think that we are suffering from what W.E.B. Du Bois says is double consciousness, where we view the world from the lenses of other people There was no freedom of speech during the time when white people were ruling the country.
True.
Now, the majority is ruling the country, and we are amongst the global leaders when it comes to freedom of speech. Some people will be shocked to find out that in South Africa, we are ranked higher, and this has been consistent for the past many years. We are ranked higher than the United States, the United Kingdom, and France when it comes to freedom of speech. That's why after we've discussed here, I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen when I walk onto the streets. Neither are you. So I think from our perspective, the doom and gloom perspective is not how we should approach this particular matter, because we know that people go on public platforms, they criticize, they insult, and their lives are safe. But when you go to other countries, that's not the case. And so we are a leader. We should be very careful in how we totally bombard our leaders with all this negativity, whereby there are some positives in the rule that we've had. However, in the specific political killings where people are killing each other for power, where you're going to then threaten a woman and her daughter for her freedom of speech, for her views, I think that is totally unacceptable. It needs to be condemned. And I think if there's a problem in terms of ANC discipline that Makosi Khoza has done, let us follow that particular process. Or if she needs to be engaged further, then call her in and engage, because this is not helping even the organization as the ANC. It's not helping government or the ANC for there to be fights like this.
But Dominic, I want you to take us back to that issue of death threats. I mean, how credible are they, and how sure are we that they come from the other members of the ANC, I think is the question we need to ask.
I mean, the stakes are too high. I mean, even though there's not been any clear evidence who's behind all these threats, but the person who's feeling the pain, the person who's feeling the pressure is Dr. Makosi Khoza.
We've always heard about opportunistic,
you know, going back to the situation in KZN, we know where South Africa was before 1994, especially in KZN. So we should treat this thing, carefully to make sure that we condemn these death threats. We condemn the killings that are going on in KZN, because of South Africa cannot afford to go back to that era again, where people are simply killed for their own views. People were killed for wearing a particular T-shirt. And the ANC was in the driving seat to make sure that it liberates this country, make sure that even in KZN, people can wear any T-shirt that they want. Can you imagine if, that freedom of speech is suppressed within the ANC? Then it raises questions that, can they do that in government? Can they do that to broader society, where people now cannot come to SABC studios and offer, an honest opinion? Because of, that as you walk outside, there will be a group of people waiting for you. So we cannot be. That is why I say that whilst I respect, the likes of BLF and others to raise questions around how the media conducts itself, but they should not take up those arms and also threaten journalists, because of South Africa made a decision in 1994 that is going to govern this country in a different way, to make sure that even if you disagree with the president, but your life will be secured.
All right. Your final point, Tebogo?
Yeah, I think it's very important what my colleague is saying, Dominic. In terms of striking that balance. I also want us just to emphasize and highlight, the dangers of us, trying to create the perception that ever since Africans have taken power, particularly political power in South Africa, that everything has collapsed. I think that we must be very careful, because even that freedom of speech, South Africa is a global champion when it comes to freedom of speech. We must celebrate that. We must encourage that. And when people are trying to curtail your freedom of speech, we should address that too. And so that is why we do condemn it when people threaten you after that. And it's correct. When a journalist has written something you don't agree with, engage that journalist intellectually.
Absolutely.
Do not go to that person and start threatening them physically, because now that's now a crime. You know, we're now going to another state where we're going to collapse, you know, people's freedom, you know, to express their views.
All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. That's unfortunately where we have to leave it. Those were my two panelists on the main set, Mr. Tebogo Ditsejo, as well as Mr. Dominic Mahlangu, talking to us about some of the biggest news, of course, that transpired this week. After the break, we look into the mechanisms and recovery plans put in place by the SABC interim board. You don't want to miss it. The chairperson is right here.
All right, we talk about a healthy lifestyle, but what is this healthy lifestyle?
What we're talking about really is you are healthy in those three areas of life: body, mind, and soul.
Before you embark on a weight loss journey, rather first speak to your person who has your complete clinical picture.
Ideally, your plate should look like this. Half of your plate should be fruit and vegetables. A quarter of your plate, starch. Quarter protein.
Show you some of the things that I really enjoy doing for that bottom pouch as well as for cardio. So you do your kicks, you kick back.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Welcome back. In battle, former SABC acting CEO Mr. James Aguma resigned from the organization this past week. Aguma was facing 10 charges, including the breach of fiduciary duties and providing false information under oath during the disciplinary hearing of former Chief Operations Officer Mr. Hlaudi Motsoneng. The former CEO tendered his resignation in exchange for the SABC dropping the disciplinary hearing against him. Aguma was suspended in May from the public broadcaster for allegedly lying to the interim board about Motsoneng's disciplinary hearing for misconduct of a press conference that took place in April. Now, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, SCOPA, has labelled Aguma's resignation as an admission of guilt, and the interim board is currently conducting a forensic investigation into the various challenges that have plagued the organization. Meanwhile, the organization continues to face financial challenges and has requested a financial bailout from Treasury. For more on this, we're very pleased to be joined by SABC Interim Board Chairperson Uma Okanyisile Kweyama to shed more light on, amongst others, the current state of the SABC. Ma, what an honor. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, our viewers and us have been literally dying for this moment, but how much has the board done since its appointment, and what still needs to be done, ma?
Yo, I can't tick off. It's a lot. It sometimes feels like a 24-hour job.
Yeah.
And like we're supposed to be a board, we're not executives. But, you know, there were just a lot of things that needed to be bedded down. And key amongst them is governance. Because you can do all sorts of things. You can discipline, but if governance is not in place, then things start falling apart. So that's one of the main tasks we just put ourselves to ensure that the organization has the proper framework for making decisions, for people to operate and all those things. And of course, in the middle of that is just making sure that people feel there is law and order back at the SABC. You know, people like yourselves who work here, you know, when we see you on screen, we forget that you're actually an employee.
Absolutely.
And it's important for the public to understand that for you to come here and face the public, and you've got all this baggage behind you, you've got interference, you've got not knowing whether you're going to be threatened, you've got the fear, you've got the intimidation, doesn't bode well for the broadcaster. So it was just an element of those. Hence, we ended up just being so hands-on, whereas a board will come in, do what it needs to do and go out.
Yeah.
But we've had to deal with employees saying, oh, well, my case has been on the board for so long, for 3 years, for 5 years, and nobody's attending to me. I've been fired illegally, all those things. So it's just been a combination of putting things back on track
making people know that the fear and intimidation, that's not the order of the day. Because people used to fear not only executives, but also not feeling that they have the coverage from the board. Because in the end, the board is supposed to direct strategy, ensure that everything is flowing. But at the same time, when people are doing the right thing, be a sort of a backup to ensure that things will go smooth. So those are some of the things that I say, you can't tick them off, you know, because if you ask me, people who are whistleblowing, people who are complaining, I'll say, oh yeah, my email is going on till midnight. But also for people to know that they will send an email and say, but this has been going on for so long and nobody's attending to it, and get a response. And I get that back a lot, because I will respond and people say, thank you for the prompt response. We didn't know that a chairperson will respond. We didn't know that a member of the board will respond. So governance first and foremost, because the reason things fall apart is because there are no policies. Somebody can change rules overnight. So we've been very tight on ensuring that happens.
Let's talk about financials.
And finance.
How far are we in terms of turning around
I thought
the broadcaster when it comes to
that?
I want to hear
You don't
now.
want us to be cut off before it goes off. You know, turnaround is probably not where we are now, but starting to see, you know, they say when you're in ICU, at first it's like the machines are the ones that are controlling you completely, but then you start recovering some, so that we can say that, well, maybe your pulse on its own is picking up and things like that. So that's where we are. That at least, you know, you've been paid ever since we've been here, you know, when we landed here. So I want witnesses to confirm that they are being paid.
confirm.
So there's that, you know, that in the first week, some of the decisions we had to make were about our salary is going to be paid, watching cash flow closer, ensuring that payments are monitored, you know, forming payment committees, things like that, that you'd normally not do as a board. So the finances are not out of the woods yet. We still need a guarantee to ensure that we continue beyond the 6 months, but we're managing cash literally every week, watching the balances, seeing how much we can pay. You know, we had threats of content being removed from the air when we came here, because there were no payments coming through. But we met with producers. So, you know, managing stakeholders has been a key part. Going out there, meeting people, making sure we make promises, and then going back to ensure that we keep the promises that we have made. So, you know, we're not dancing and celebrating about the finances yet, but we, at least instead of sleepless nights, you get to sleep for about 2 or 3 hours a night, if that
there
explains
is a little
it.
bit of rest there. Ma, staying with the financials, we know that there's currently a forensic investigation. We're not sure. I want you to outline, is it across all staff, or is it senior management? Who exactly is being investigated? Because we do know that a lot of the broadcasters' financial woes are actually accumulated through wasteful expenditure.
You know, to say there is a forensic, there isn't one overall forensic investigation. And the way forensics work is that either by reason of the AG's report that says there's been irregular expenditure, there's been fruitless, there's been waste and all those things, then you can do your internal investigation. So we're not going out to look at you and say, what have you done? But we know that there are categories that are not functioning properly. There's the news department that has issues, there's sports that has issues, there's issues from the Auditor General that have come out, and there are those that are in the public eye, obviously, like the disciplinaries and things that are linked to that. So forensic audits will then be investigated on each of those. And as the results come out and determine that there is wrongdoing, there is mismanagement, then you take those further. The relationship you refer to with the SIU, where we have engaged with the SIU to then deal with what would normally bring external investigators to do. So those are there. So yes, to answer your question on your lead, when you introduced, yes, the matters around Mr. Aguma, around Mr. Mutswening have been reported publicly, are in Public Protector's reports, are in the Auditor General's reports. So Mr. Aguma's charges did have as a background some of those forensic investigations, the additional charges that we made.
Ma'am, maybe you'll comment on the reasoning or the decision by the board to let Mr. Aguma resign, because a lot of people are saying it was just a slap on the wrist for him.
You don't let a person resign. A person resigns. You know, a person decides to resign. You can't say, okay, you can resign. Or when a person resigns, you can't say, oh, well, sorry, you can't resign. We obviously are always guided by legal advice. So when it came to us that Mr. Aguma is going to resign, and we should clear that it wasn't an offer.
Okay, because
Mr.
that's what the media is
Aguma
reporting.
resigned, yeah. And first you would have seen that the disciplinary hearing of Mr. Aguma was put to a independent chair. So we were not doing the disciplinary. The chair was doing the disciplinary. And when a chair is doing that, he is the boss of the hearing. So if evidence comes to him, he makes a decision. If a resignation letter comes to him, he makes a decision. Okay. So we then get the letter that follows, or we say, well, let's see the letter. No point in saying to us you are resigning when we are not seeing the letter. So the chair, actually, by the time we went public, the chair had already made his decision.
Okay, Ma, so does this mean that the SABC is not going to be taking any further steps now against Mr. Aguma?
It doesn't mean that. We will continue with the wrongdoing, the irregular expenditure, the wasteless, all those. And we have said that publicly as well, that process continues. The investigation had been concluded, handed over to the SIU, but we are obviously also engaging on what other avenues, because in the end, the board is responsible for collecting the monies that were wasted at the SABC, not the SIU.
Speaking of those monies to be collected, is there any sort of mechanism to bring those to account, whoever has been implicated in the wasteful expenditure, to try and collect that money back from them?
Yes, the courts of law, you know, we can issue summons, we can approach the courts, there are a measure of, but the courts of law, because before you, even when a sheriff comes to your house, he must show that he's got a court judgment. So those are the measures that will be entered into.
Ma, there's a big cloud hanging over staff in the building. A lot of people are asking, there's been rumors that the news channel doesn't have money to keep running. Or can you assure the viewers and even the colleagues at this stage that the News 24 channel is going to be given a lifeline?
No, and we really rely on you to stop the rumors when they come, because it's also about your jobs. Rumors. So the SABC is in a very unenviable position in that the same people who pass the news are actually the staff.
The people that are here.
So, you know, I think that's also a responsibility that we need to plead to employees and our staff, is as we are working with this ship, to work with us instead of working against us. You know, we've had several interventions in the news department where we know publicly that at some states the news staff called a vote of no confidence against executives and all that. So the news department has received particular attention from the board, and that process continues. I think even last week Mr. Tsedu leads that process with as the deputy chair with some of the board members and the senior executives at the SABC. So it's under our radar, and there is no way there will be a rumor out there that things are falling apart. It's our mandate is to provide news, to inform, to educate, to entertain, and we are always conscious of that at all times. And in the various blocks, we ensure that the ship is staying. We don't look at one and let the others fall apart.
Okay, now that the money is out of the way, let's talk about this. We know you've just made a pronouncement on the review of the policies. Talk to us about the intention, the strategy, as well as the outcome of the whole process, Ma.
First, we should say review of policies is nothing sinister here. Is that any organization, any company, because it changes, it transforms. You know, remember the people who were sitting here doing interviews 10 years ago, they are my age, they've moved on. You come with different ideas, you are younger, and you work in a different environment. You know, we've got so many mediums now, social media, all those. So we constantly need to review to ensure that we are relevant, we are staying on course, we are meeting all the challenges that we have to as a public broadcaster. So the editorial policy review is a periodic review, but also the fact that some policies were adopted in the past without going through the proper channel of going to ICASA and ensuring that all that was in order. So ICASA, some stakeholders complained. We lost that case, and we had to go back to the drawing board.
All right.
And that was mainly in public participation. So we are going through that process.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I wish we could go on and on, but of course, that review process, you know, you are able to get yourself a copy of the SABC's current editorial policy and make your comments, and just go and visit the website. And also, you can come into the building and ask for one. That was the SABC interim board chairperson, Uma Okanyisile Kweyama, and she was, of course, outlining some of the strides that the interim board has taken so far in trying to take back the national broadcaster into a reputable stand. Thank you for joining us here on Media Monitor. We hope that you will join us again next week right here on the SABC News channel. I'm back on top of the hour with MU. Stay right there.